Right, okay. Good morning to you all, and thank you so much for joining Venencia and myself for the very first interview, live interview with a chapter contributor of The Forgotten Woman, the South African Story. This is a very light-hearted interview. I want you to feel completely relaxed. I want you to ask questions. Venencia, I'm sure, would love to answer some of your questions as well. So, what an incredible day to start this. Obviously, I chose it as it is Women's Day. What an incredible opportunity to salute and honor the women that came before us and the women that are going to come after us, who will continue and strive towards the equality of women in all society and in corporate and in their families. So I want to welcome you and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out on a precious Sunday to be with us. But I truly hope that you'll be inspired by what we shared today and what Venencia has to say today. And to start off with, I thought it would be a nice way to introduce you to the book. And that is by reading the foreword, which was written by the patron of the Women of Stature Foundation, and she is Professor Shirley Zinn. She wrote this incredible foreword, which really encapsulates the essence of the book. So as I say, I want you to sit back, I want you to relax, I want you to feel that you're part of this incredible celebration and this incredible journey that we started in May this year, I might add, and we completed this incredible project, and the book actually was published on the 31st of July on Amazon Kindle. Well, let me tell you, we were chasing timelines. We were literally chasing timelines. And, you know, it's just wonderful when you see the camaraderie that comes about. Sorry, I just want to enable the waiting room so I don't have to keep back admitting people. So welcome to our newcomers and thank you so much for joining. We look forward to spending an hour with you. So as I was saying, to start off this very momentous occasion, with Venencia being the youngest contributor of a chapter, so she officially became an author, which is as a result of this, not so, Venencia?
Yes, at the age of 25.
There we go, there we go. So as I was saying, Venencia, if you don't mind, I'd just like to read the foreword. So it gives our viewers a little bit of an insight as to the essence of this book, which was, the foreword was written by Professor Shirley Zinn. She's also the patron of the Women of Stature Foundation. And of course, all the sales of this book is specifically for the project which we initiated during COVID-19, and that is the Forgotten Woman of COVID-19 fundraising project, which obviously I would love to tell you more about that, but this morning is, or this afternoon I should say, is specifically for Venencia to introduce her and for her to share a little bit about herself. So the foreword goes like this. This is a compelling must-read, especially in these unprecedented times of the global pandemic COVID-19. The World Health Organization made the official announcement on 11th of March 2020 that COVID-19 is a global pandemic and a global health crisis. Since then, we have experienced its devastating impact on society, the economy, business, and the health of people. We are also experiencing the profound impact on children and women in particular, and the amplified impact on pre-existing inequalities. This book is a call to action for women and men who are seeking to truly build a better world for all. Every chapter captures the essence and spirit of the valiant, pioneering women who have overcome the many adversities of a society that has silenced the voices of women. This book enables us to hear those voices. These forgotten women have gone on to rise up and courageously share their stories. These are the stories of the forgotten women. They have significantly changed the course of their lives and those of their families, communities, and society. I salute the brave women who put pen to paper and shared their stories in this extraordinary read. Every chapter has a unique story that is often painful yet powerful. Every chapter is a transformational and inspirational story. Chapters include When the Landscapes Shift, the Voice is Heard. They Whispered to the World She Can. On Motherhood, Paving a New Path, Forgotten Woman Lives On. A South African athlete story from apartheid to freedom and fighting breast cancer. These are stories of women mobilizing against prejudice and inequality and lack of resources and opportunity. These are stories of intense determination, diligence, and dedication to rise up and step forward despite the odds. Well, if that's not enough to inspire you this Women's Day, I don't know what is. So, Venencia, it's over to you. And I'm sure the audience, the ladies who have joined us today, are dying to know about Venencia Mhonde. So, let's just kick off with something like, what did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, you aren't completely grown up because you're 25 and there's still a lot of growth ahead of you. So Venencia, tell us, what inspires you and what did you want to be? And have you actually accomplished what you actually set out to do, or is there still a lot to come from you, Venencia?
Thank you so much, Charlotte, and thank you to everyone that has joined us this Women's Day. Happy Women's Day. I'll just start there. It's a beautiful day to just celebrate how far we've come and all that we have achieved. I think when I was a little girl, I loved to tell stories, but I often did that through art. And I found myself dreaming of becoming an artist. I loved working with textiles and surfaces, and I would always be in the art room all the way through high school. But when the time came to obviously make the decision of what I'd go on to study, I obviously considered, graphic design or interior design, and eventually ended up pursuing a completely different path and studying people and hearing people's stories and just understanding the human mind and why people do things the way they do them. And so I pursued psychology. Would I say that I have grown or I am growing into the woman that I dreamt of as a young girl? I think when I look at my life and what I do, I now work for a market research firm and I'm always around people. So I think that's the one thing that has been completely fulfilled on this entire path. I find myself surrounded by people and I almost like feed off that energy. I've always just been passionate about getting to know people's stories, and market research is such a beautiful way to do that and to tell their stories through the kind of work that we do. So yes, I would say, it's obviously evolved, but I have grown into the woman I hope to be.
Well, that's wonderful. You're certainly a beautiful woman, and you're certainly someone that any parent, any sister, any uncle, any cousin can be so proud of. So I'm not sure if you know, but a lady actually sent me an email this past week and she wanted the link to your interview because she's been following you for quite a number of years, I believe. And I see that she is online with us, and her name's Stella, and she sits in the Midlands in a beautiful, beautiful part of the countryside of KZN. And I believe that she's followed your success. And isn't that wonderful when somebody has noticed just how this young woman is growing into this beautiful, it's a passion that you have, and it just, just shows. So, Venencia, who was your role model growing up, even possibly now? Who's the one person that you really look up to, and who you aspire to be? Because I guess at the end of the day, we are very much influenced by other people. Who is it in your world that you are influenced by and role model?
I think like most people, when we are younger, we look up to those that are around us. And for me, it was, you know, my parents were my role models for such a long time, probably throughout my childhood and going into my teenage years. And then you sort of like bloom and grow, and you start seeing other figures in the world that, you know, you are inspired by. And I think when I look at my journey, so I moved to South Africa in 2012. And around that time, I worked quite closely with a lady, her name was Esther Benjamin. And just looking at her passion for education and educating others, she was the CEO of Laureate during the time that they took over Monash. And just being able to go through, you know, those very confusing and often lonely varsity years where there's so many external pressures, and having this person who is almost like your anchor. And I loved her passion for education. I think that's one of the things that actually drove me to pursue my studies as hard as I did. She had served on 2 different presidential administrations in the United States. And she's gone on to do some amazing things with women across the world. And then somewhere along that path, it all just came back to, again, looking at my parents and now knowing what I know about adulting, as I like to call it, and just realizing that they are phenomenal for being able to just hold it down, to raise 3 children, to put us through first-class education, to, you know, the financial and emotional investment that they put into us. I think I found myself in this place where I've come back home, if I can call it that. And I'm in absolute awe of my parents and everything that they have achieved. So they are now my role models, without a doubt.
That's incredible, because, you know, we are very privileged when we have parents who are actually, you know, a good influence and obviously role models. So you were very, very privileged, I would say, to that degree. So for anybody that has just tuned in with us, because we actually are live on Facebook, and I'm doing this via my phone, which I'm actually got my camera on, and I've got Facebook on. So Venencia, just so that you know, we are live on Facebook. So for those who've just tuned in, this is Venencia Mhonde. She has contributed a chapter to The Forgotten Woman, the South African Story, which is a beautiful book of collective stories of women from all walks of life. And today being Women's Day, this is the first one that we are actually doing the interview with. So we're very excited. She is also the youngest contributor. And I must tell you, for those who may not know, she is the 2020 Youth Ambassador of Women of Stature. So there was clearly something that the adjudicators already saw in Venencia, hence the fact that she became the overall winner of her category. So Venencia is sharing as to where she's come from and who her role models are. But there's obviously a reason why we're interviewing you, and that's specifically about the book. So what intrigued you and inspired you to write a chapter and contribute your story?
I think there were 2 things. And if you'll allow me, Charlotte, I just want to share a quick poem that actually pushed me to grow and to move out of my comfort zone. It's by Leslie Dwight, and it reads, "What if 2020 is not cancelled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't cancelled, but rather the most important year of them all." And during the time that you reached out to me to let me know that Dr. Shapiro had obviously nominated me and put me forward as a young woman who could contribute to this collection, I think this poem just sparked something inside of me. And I thought, I know 2020 is tough. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but there's an opportunity to change someone's life. There's an opportunity to pour whatever there is left inside of me during this difficult time and to use it for positive change, to use it to be the change for someone. And so scared as I was and very uncertain and very unsure, I think that just pushed me because this was a chance to actually bring change for someone. So I would say that's actually what compelled me to write a book. To write the chapter contribution for the book.
So what is it in your chapter, in your story, that you believe is going to bring about change and be, have for people to take away from it and say, gosh, I've just learned something from Venencia? What would you say are one or two or even three of the things that really stand out in your story?
I think what I enjoyed the most was being able to pencil down the journey as a young woman becoming aware of patriarchy. One of the things that I keep speaking about when I share with friends and family around, my contribution is that because we are normalized and we are raised in a certain way that obviously has patriarchal systems or ideas or norms entrenched in our upbringing, it becomes the normal. And until you have almost like this awakening, until you have this moment where you actually start understanding what it means and how it affects and how it influences your life, you go through this phase of challenging what you have always known to be the normal. And I think for me, reaching a stage where, I looked back and I go as far as speaking about what I considered to be the first instance that I was exposed to patriarchy. And then only after reflecting, realizing that it's actually been there in a lot of other situations. It is there in my family unit. It is there in basic relations between men and women, and trying to understand how do we navigate, these different societal roles that we occupy as women. How do we navigate those where sometimes we challenge these systems and other times we submit to them knowingly or unknowingly? And I think just the idea of feeling as though, and I think for me personally, I always felt as though I could reach a point where I was so successful, so educated, that patriarchy could not happen to me. And one of the things I raise in the chapter is that it is almost as if we navigate from one form of patriarchy to another in our lives and in our journeys as women. And just, obviously thinking about what that means for us and what that means in the different roles and in the different paths that we pursue. So if there's one thing that I think really stands out for me when I think of what I've contributed, I think it would be that topic.
Mm-hmm. You're so right in what you've just said, because I just think of my own life, and I just think of my own experiences and how you move from one system, patriarchy system, to the next, to the next, to the next. So yeah, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of the readers. So are you going to consider writing your own book? Do you believe that is in your future?
One of the interesting things, Charlotte, was, when I started putting down my ideas and my thoughts for this chapter, I reached a point where I thought, I actually need to reflect. I actually need to almost dive deeper within myself and to take the time to unpack all of these things that I haven't had the opportunity to realize are going on internally. And so I'm so grateful for this opportunity because it made me realize I do have a story to tell. You know, I do have a story that I want to share, not only with other women, but even for my niece, who's, I mean, only 2 years old at the moment. But when she looks up to me one day, I would like her to have, you know, different pieces of advice that she can draw from. And for me, there's this recurring thought that just keeps coming to mind. Charlotte, I have such an incredible privilege because of Women of Stature to stand on the shoulder of giants. I view you and, you know, Shirley Zinn and Lynn Hill and all of these incredible women that came together, and beyond just this book, you know, that network of women who are literally giants and have achieved so much. And to be in this privileged position where I can stand on their shoulders and be guided and have mentors and have these amazing anchors. I think I owe it to everyone, and I owe it to all of these women to tell a story, regardless of what that story will look like. But I'll definitely be putting something down in the future.
Well, there we go, ladies. This is now spurred on one of our future authors, South African authors. So it's wonderful though, because I think when I initiated the concept of the book, the one thing that was most, how can I say, on top of mind for me was the fundraising in order to be able to help women that have suddenly landed themselves, and not themselves, but been landed in desperate situations. And that was the primary objective. But what I can see has happened, Venencia, over this period of time is this kinship that has happened amongst these women, and how each one has almost like relived their entire life and been able to pour it out into words. Is it something that you would recommend other women to do? Have you found that this has brought some sort of closure in some instances, and others, has it helped you to work through something that you may have under other circumstances not done? Has that had was it like therapeutic for you? Let's put it that way.
It was definitely therapeutic, and just like any form of healing, you know, it's obviously not linear. There were pages or parts in the story that were easier to tell than others. And through that, I found myself confronting a lot of the things that I never confronted as they happened or as they unfolded during the time that I was growing up. And so I think it's something all women have to go through. I think that opportunity to look back and to actually just pour it out. You know, we carry so many burdens and so many different weights during our transitions and into becoming. And so it's something that I think there's so much power and ownership that comes with being able to revisit the whole journey and the whole story on your own terms. Because a lot of the contributions, as I page through them, are about things that were done to us, things that we were not powerful enough, or things that we did not have the chance to actually control as they happened. And to now willingly, on your own terms, revisit those things and to change them and to take back your power. There's something about ownership and just taking back your power. I think every woman deserves to go through that at some point in their lives.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there as well. So I guess we are living in a state of disaster, as we all know. And for many, it's a time of insecurity. What would you say is the one thing that has helped you through this period of time? And what advice would you have for others if you've managed to get through it well and survive the way that you have, what is your advice to others going through this?
I think the one thing is, as women, because we are viewed as superheroes or superwomen, we often struggle with boundaries. We often struggle to say no. And during this period, I'm almost being pushed into a space where I am becoming more and more comfortable with saying no and being unapologetic about my boundaries and being able to define who and what and why in my life, rather than when simply things just happen to us. And so I think during this period to actually, you know, whether you're working from home, whether you are having to make difficult decisions around your business, whether it is navigating family and homeschool and everything else that a lot of women have had to take on, it's defining those boundaries and being honest with yourself about where you can serve so that you're not in a position where you are pouring from an empty cup. And I think that is one, like my one piece of advice, is to be able to just set boundaries and to say no. And it's so much tougher than it sounds. I struggle with it. I often have these moments with my mother where I'm like, you're just doing too much. You're taking on too much. And I see that it's just something, it's like a common factor across different women in different lives. We just don't know when to stop taking on. So that would be it.
That is so true. And I think a lot of the ladies that are online with us today probably are sitting there nodding their heads and saying, yeah, that's me, that's me. And I guess, as you say, by nature, women are the nurturers. Women are the ones that people, you know, the mother, for instance, goes to the sister. So let's hear, what do you do in your pastime? I mean, what is your favorite? Do you have hobbies? Do you play sport? Do you dance? Do you listen to music? Do you like movies? What is Venencia in her relaxation time? Who is she?
Who is she? Unfortunately, I have 2 left feet. So you will not see me dancing. But it's interesting. I've always liked the idea of creating. I love to create. And a couple of years ago, I started an Instagram page where I create content. So I have an eye for detail and I love to capture beautiful things. So I actually spend a lot of my time creating content for social media consumption. It is still very much aligned to what I do from, you know, a women empowerment perspective, which is very interesting. So I think women empowerment is always just at the center of whatever I put my hands on. But yes, I love to take photos. I love to create. I do little Instagram videos and anything that just involves creating and being able to just step away and do something fun that other people can appreciate. So you will usually see me with beauty products or doing makeup tutorials, but definitely creating.
Excellent. Well done. It's always lovely when there's a creative spirit every now and again, because it takes you away from almost like the too seriousness of life. So,
Definitely.
So if I want to pose a question to you now, and I want to ask you, if you were president for just one day, and you know, you got the opportunity to make some changes or do one thing that you feel would bring about a tremendous change to South Africa, because we're talking specifically South Africa now, because in the context of where we are now, what would you do if you were? Would you like to be the president of a country? I mean, South Africa is obviously your home, but is that something that you've ever thought about? And what would you do if you had that opportunity? Because, you know, there's a lot of women that are suddenly taking on that leading role in countries, eh?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That.
Becoming president is an interesting one. because, you know, I think when you're on the outside looking in, it looks simple. And a lot of the times we get so upset about action that's not being taken. And, you know, we have questions, why have these decisions being made over those decisions? And if I found myself in a position where I were president for a day, I think the conversation of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa definitely requires a lot more action. I feel that, yes, we are at the forefront of the conversation, but it is a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking around it, and not enough accountability being put in the hands of those that are responsible. And so I think for me, I'm not quite sure exactly how I'll do it, but bringing those who have even taken lives of women just because they are women. So the conversation of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa is something that I would want to address. I know it's not something we can do in a day, and obviously those are not actions that we can implement in a day, but to definitely move away from just talking about it and to actually move into a space where we start to see change.
Start to see change. You're absolutely right. So before we finish with the interview with Venencia, I'd like to open up the lines and ask, is there anybody that would like to ask a question? You're very welcome to unmute yourself. Please put your videos on and let us have a little bit of an interaction for the next 5 minutes. I know that you all have Sunday lunch that you must rush off to as well. You don't want to keep your families waiting. But I think if you could spend the next 2 to 3 minutes before we end off and just have some questions. Anybody want to come forward and ask a question and raise their hand perhaps? I see that we have a few comments in the chat box. Let's have a look at what was there. Sonia Dube says, agree with that 100%, Venencia. Patriarchy is something we consistently face as women, so fitting to reflect on this day, Women's Day. Thank you for that. We are not alone in facing the reality. I see Linda has said, hi V, you killing it. Nisha is saying she really did, so I guess that's your fan club that you brought along. I see Alicia van Niekerk has raised her hand. So Alicia, do you want to come on live, dear? Do you want to unmute and let's see you? And you ask.
Hi, yes, hi Venencia. Maybe just one question, a quick one. Is there any message that you would like to give specifically to our youth today, our young women?
Oh, it's an interesting question. Do not settle for the comfortable version of yourself. I think there's something, you know, we always say that something exciting happens outside of our comfort zones. And during the couple of months that I have been the youth ambassador for Women of Stature, I consistently find myself in this space where I've stopped doubting myself and I have stopped playing in the comfortable space. So I would say grow into that uncomfortable version of yourself. Grow into it and just take it and go with it. Because you might fail. It might not come right first time around. But there's definitely something so fulfilling about being able to look back, no matter how old you are, and realizing that you did not just sit back through this life, that you lived. So I encourage you to do something that is outside of your comfort zone, without a doubt.
I loved it. Thank you so much. It's such a nice message.
Pleasure, and thank you so much. Happy Women's Day.
So before we end off completely, all right, so Isabel, Venencia, you're truly an amazing and beautiful young lady, so authentic and real. Thank you for sharing your remarkable life story. You're a legend. Wow. Coming from Isabel. Fantastic. So before we end off, would you like to tell everybody about the new project that you and I are launching this coming Wednesday, and it's on International Youth Day, believe it or not, on the 12th. Do you want to just tell everybody about that before we finish up?
Absolutely. So I think, to put it in a nutshell, there were two things that happened. The first was that I think we had the Women of Stature Awards about a week or 2 weeks before the country went into lockdown.
Correct.
And one of the things that's been playing in my mind is, okay, how do we bring change, or how do we still make this a year where we've achieved and we've brought impact to other people's lives when we don't have the privilege of being together? And I was sitting and brainstorming and trying to come up with some innovative ways for us to actually reach out to our youth segment. And the second thing that happened around that time was I started getting more and more requests from young women on my social media platform, just asking me how I've managed to position myself where I am now and to achieve everything that I've achieved. And so I thought to myself, it would only be fitting for us to use this year, even during this pandemic, to actually empower young girls and to start guiding them so that they too can grow into the path that I find myself on. And so Charlotte and I had a couple of ideas. Eventually we decided to actually design, it's a personal and career development program that was inspired by the SWOT analysis. So we've taken that matrix and we have split it across 4 weeks. So each week we'll tackle one of the items from the matrix. So the first week, this coming Wednesday, is going to be looking at strengths. And I think that was the same path that I was on, where I said, okay, but how can I bring about change, and what can I do as an ambassador without being able to have face-to-face interactions? And so unpacking our strengths and our capabilities during this time and what we can do with them. And then to go on to speak about our weaknesses, but in a safe space. I think it's always very empowering to be able to be vulnerable where you feel safe. And that's the kind of environment that we want to harness. And so the next week after that, we'll be just looking at, you know, in terms of like opportunities, opportunities not only within Women of Stature, but what opportunities can young people start leveraging in order to develop themselves? And finally, we'll be looking at any threats. And I think with COVID-19 happening at the moment, everyone is feeling kind of scared and everyone's very restricted. And just looking at how we can pretty much take that matrix apart within the Women of Stature Foundation, and we can start getting women living their best lives, if I can call it that. And so it's going to be a very, very exciting 4-week series. I'm very excited, and I just want to end off by inviting each and every one of you to please come through and join us. It may be something that we are using to target the youth, but it's always nice, like I said, to have some giants in the room and, you know, to have that wisdom passed on to us. So I definitely encourage and invite all of you to please join us.
And how would they go about doing that, Venencia?
Okay, so we do have some pamphlets that are so on our social media platforms. I know, Charlotte, you have posted on the Women of Stature page. You can also contact Charlotte directly. And you're more than welcome to message me and I will send you details. It's going to be via Zoom, so it'll be just a quick session, about an hour and a half. And yes, you're welcome to call or contact Charlotte and myself, and we'll guide you in the right direction.
Excellent. So on that, just to mention that we are actually raising funds by doing this as well. So there is a small fee that you'll pay to attend. If you only want to attend 1 or 2 of them, you'll pay 100 Rand per week. Or we've got a special offer of 375 Rand to book yourself for all 4 weeks. And that is all available on Quicket. So on quicket.co.za, and it's called the Women of Stature Youth Series, Youth Webinar Series. So Venencia, that was so well executed. I want to say thank you so much for being my first interviewee for this series. It was wonderful to finally have you sitting down, relaxing, and telling us a little bit more about yourself. And I'm sure that you have inspired everyone that is online with us, and you will continue to inspire. So from me to you, Venencia, all I can say is keep up the great work that you are doing. You look as though you have a crown on your head. I don't know if you realize it, because the mirror behind you, it actually looks as though you've got this beautiful glass crown. It's like a halo. You've got a halo around you there. I don't know if you did it on purpose or whether it just so happens to be, but all I can say is it's an absolute honor, and it's so wonderful to have your young energy in and amongst the rest of us. And we all that we can say, and to leave you all to say, have a wonderful Women's Day. Every day should be Women's Day. Don't you agree, Venencia?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Right. So, love to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for making Venencia feel so welcome. And I think we had a last little message here from Stella. I'm so proud to know you, Venencia. Please continue to inspire those around you. Young and old can learn from you. I can't wait to read the book and see what else you have in store for us. And then Nisha says, great work, darling. So there you go. What a wonderful way to end it off. And keep soaring, she also says. So yes, it's wonderful, because our summit of next week, Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon, is Women Rise. And we are definitely going to be making everybody rise from their seats. We're not going to let you sit down for much longer than probably a half an hour. And then you're going to be up and you're going to be stretching, and you're going to be doing all exciting things. So again, from me to you, Venencia, well done. Thank you so much. Simba says, an inspiration to both ladies and gentlemen. Keep it up. So
thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. And yes, all that's left to say is bye. Have a blessed Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Women's Day. And thank you so much for coming and supporting us with our very first official interview with our beautiful Venencia that we are so proud of. So bless you all, and goodbye. Bye-bye, everybody.